Good morning and welcome to the Yummy Arts Kitchen. My name is Amanda Yother and we are here actually in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, shooting at the Pastry and More Bakery. And I have a really exciting project for you today. I don't know if you're a huge Star Wars fan. I know I am, and I know that my little boy Connor is. Now Connor's 8 years old, and so when Star Wars The Force Awakening first started showing up in all the previews, he got pretty excited. And the thing he got the most excited about, whether you've seen the film or not, is BB-8. He's the little droid character. He's kind of the new R2. He's a really fun little project. So today we will be making a 3D BB-8 for you, showing you how to make it. This is specifically going to be made for my little boy Connor. So let's get started and I'll show you exactly what you're going to need. So I've compiled everything you're going to need for this project today, and of course if I've forgotten anything we'll introduce it as we go along, and I apologize for that. What you are going to need to start with is a good white fondant. Now this is Lawrence Foods Finishing Touch brand. You can use whatever you prefer or whatever is easy for you to get locally. This is just what we get here. But whatever it is you choose to use, make sure that it has a nice amount of elasticity. We are going to be covering the sphere this morning, and it needs to be able to stretch well without getting a whole lot of elephant skin. And the Lawrence brand actually does a really good job of that. In addition, we have vodka, kind of a cake decorator's best friend. You can use it for a whole bunch of things. Today we're going to be using it to paint with silver. Now we have some of our smaller tools. This is of course a veining tool. I find that the metal tools have a tendency to just make a much cleaner impression. In addition, we have a ball tool. It has two sizes of ball end, of course. The larger ball is something we would use for flowers. Today we're going to be using this small end, and the reason for that is we're going to be putting some rivets in BB-8, and we just want to make sure that we can get that nice impression. Of course, we have just a regular craft knife. And then we have a variety of brushes. We will be painting all of BB-8's detail on him versus, say, cutting fondant out and placing it on. I find that it has a much cleaner look, just ends up being a little bit more realistic. So I have a couple of flat-ended brushes. This is just, standard craft brushes that you would get from, say, Michael's or Hobby Lobby. A little more of a smaller detail brush. And then I have this kind of fluffy brush. Now this right here is just for removing extra cornstarch. I have a painter's palette and a couple sizes of measuring cups. Now the one measuring cup has water in it. That's just because we're going to be using it for a couple of things. We're going to be using it for, of course, putting this cake together, as well as for rinsing our brushes out. And then I have a smaller cup that doesn't have anything in it yet. That's where we will be mixing up our silver paint. I do have some colors of gel color. I have orange and lemon yellow. I also have white. Now white gel color is kind of an interesting beast. Generally it's used to make your buttercream a little whiter for wedding cakes, but what I found is when you're painting on cakes, if you add it to your gel color, it gives you a much more almost acrylic finish versus a watercolor finish, which we would normally get with a gel color when you're painting. Now the great thing about that is the coverage is much better. It's more solid. You don't have any sort of the streaking or white spots that you have a tendency to get with just painting with the gel color. I also have warm browned airbrush color. Now the reason this airbrush color is out is we will be airbrushing today. Don't be concerned if you don't have an airbrush. Now BB-8 in the film, he's a little beat up, he's a little aged, he's got some dirt on him, which we want to replicate. We want to make him look as realistic as possible. However, if you don't have an airbrush, don't be concerned about that. You can accomplish the same things with petal dust and brushes, and while I won't be demoing that today, I will, while I'm demoing, tell you how to accomplish that if you don't have access to an airbrush. I also have silver luster dust. Now this is new silver. This is a Sweet Inspirations Caljava product. You can get it directly from Caljava or their website. Edible 0.925 actual baker silver will also work as long as it's in a powdered form. Either way, you're going to be adding your vodka to this to turn it into a paint, and we'll be painting all the silver detailing on BB-8 with this. And then I have some of your decorating basics. A little bit of vegetable shortening just to make your make working with your fondant a little bit easier. There's actually a sewing pin in here, and that's for any of those pesky air bubbles you happen to get underneath your fondant. We have some cornstarch or corn flour, either one will work, same thing. I have a pair of scissors, always good to have. This is an acetate strip. This is what we'll be using to give that final icing finish to BB-8 before we cover him with fondant. And then finally I have a, this is just a round cookie cutter. It came in the, just basically in a round cutter set. This is the size I've chosen for BB-8. He has these round kind of panels on his body. I believe this one is about 3 1/4 inches. Now, if you don't have a cutter, don't be concerned. I will be freehanding all his detail on today. I'm going to just look at a picture of him and freehand it on. However, we will be including a pattern for all of BB-8's panels with this demo, of course. Finally, I have just a basic flat spatula. This is kind of my favorite tool in the whole world. I ice absolutely everything with this. You know, you can use an offset if you prefer. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. This is just for icing. Finally, I've got my phone because I've got to be able to look at a picture of BB-8, you know, going for realism as best as we can here. And finally, we have BB-8 himself. Now you can see I have already started kind of getting him together for you. This guy right here at the bottom, this is going to be BB-8's head. Now all he is the Wilton ball pan, the standard Wilton ball pan. I only baked 1/2 of him off, and then he's actually on a small round board. Now this board's approximately 5 1/2 inches in diameter. It does have a hole in it. We will be placing BB-8 on a stand. He's got to travel a little ways today. And when I placed him on the board, I also kind of beveled this edge. And that was for 2 reasons. One, I really wanted to adhere to this board. And 2, in the film, BB-8 does have this kind of beveled edge to his head, and this was a really easy way of accomplishing this without actually having to work too hard or do any sort of carving. So finally we have BB-8's body. Now for those of you who don't know, Fat Daddy-O's actually just released a new spherical pan set, which is kind of amazing. Before you could only really get the Wilton ball pan, which only comes in the one size. However, Fat Daddy-O's has now released a whole variety of sizes in the sphere, which is amazing. If you don't have access to that, which I didn't use one today, I can tell you what this cake was. This was originally a 6, a 7, an 8, a 7, and a 6. They're all stacked up and filled with buttercream and then just kind of carved down. But if you have access to those Fat Daddy-O sphere pans, they are amazing. This would be about an 8 or a 9-inch sphere. That's what's going to work best with BB-8's head, the size that we chose to do it in. This whole cake is probably going to feed, I'd say, about 15 to 20, 25, depending on how you cut it. You know, in my family, about 4 people. So, you know, kind of use your best discretion if you have to make him a bigger or smaller. You can absolutely size him up or down, especially if you can use those Fat Daddy-O's pans. So now that you know everything we're going to need to use, let's get started.